Blood stained her scrubs as Sarah Collins stepped outside the hospital, her 12-hour shift finally over. The distant thump of helicopter blades cut through the twilight air. She squinted skyward, watching as the military chopper descended onto the hospital's rarely used helipad. Four soldiers in combat fatigues jumped out, scanning the area until their eyes locked on her. The tallest one approached, his face grim beneath his helmet. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying over the dying rotor wash. "We need you to come with us. Now." If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and inspiring content like this. Your support means everything to us. Sarah had always believed her life was ordinary, just another nurse in a small-town hospital. But as the helicopter lifted off with her aboard, she realized how quickly ordinary could become extraordinary. The soldiers sat in tense silence as the chopper gained altitude. Sarah clutched her bag, knuckles white. Her mind raced through possibilities: a terrible accident, a terrorist attack, some catastrophe requiring medical personnel. But why her specifically? "I don't understand," she finally said, raising her voice over the engine noise. "Where are we going? Why me?" The soldier across from her, his name tape-read Martinez, leaned forward. "Ma'am, we're taking you to a classified location. That's all I can say until we arrive." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd worked the ER for 15 years, had seen gunshot wounds, car accidents, drug overdoses, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The helicopter banked sharply east, away from the setting sun, away from everything familiar. An hour later, they descended toward what appeared to be a military installation hidden among dense forest. Floodlights illuminated a concrete landing pad. As the helicopter touched down, Sarah saw a group of people waiting, some in military uniforms, others in civilian clothes. Martinez helped her out of the helicopter, the downdraft whipping her hair across her face. A woman in an army colonel's uniform stepped forward. "Nurse Collins," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Colonel Rebecca Hayes. Thank you for coming." "Did I have a choice?" Sarah asked, surprised by her own boldness. The colonel's expression softened slightly. "No, and I apologize for that. But once you understand why you're here, I think you'll agree it was necessary." They walked toward a nondescript building, passing through multiple security checkpoints. Sarah's nursing instincts began to override her fear. Whatever was happening, someone needed medical help, that much was clear. Colonel Hayes led her to a conference room where several people sat around a table, their faces grave. A large screen on the wall displayed what looked like medical charts. "Please, sit down," Hayes said, gesturing to an empty chair. Sarah complied, setting her bag beside her. "I think it's time someone told me what's going on." A man in a rumpled suit stood up. "Ms. Collins, I'm Dr. Alan Mercer, Department of Defense. 3 days ago, we evacuated a special operations team from a classified location overseas. They were exposed to an unknown biological agent. We've quarantined them, but they're deteriorating rapidly." Sarah frowned. "I'm just an ER nurse. Surely you have military medical personnel better qualified." "We do," Hayes interrupted. "But none of them have what you have." She nodded to another person at the table, who slid a folder across to Sarah. Inside was a photo of a young man with familiar eyes. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "That's my brother," she whispered. "Michael." "Captain Michael Collins," Hayes confirmed. "One of the exposed soldiers." Sarah hadn't seen her brother in almost 2 years. Their parents had died when they were young, and they drifted apart as adults, Michael joining the army, Sarah pursuing nursing. Occasional phone calls, rare visits when he was stateside. "Michael never told me what he really did," Sarah said quietly. "He couldn't," Hayes replied. "His unit handles sensitive operations. But that's not why you're here." You're here because you share something critical with your brother, a rare genetic marker. We believe it might be the key to developing a treatment. Dr. Mercer leaned forward. The pathogen attacks the central nervous system, but your brother is showing significantly slower progression than the others. We think it's because of a genetic anomaly you both inherited from your father. We need to study your blood, possibly develop antibodies from it. Sarah's mind reeled. You could have just asked me to donate blood. You didn't need to send a helicopter. Time is critical, Hayes said. And there's more. Your brother is asking for you. The words hung in the air. Sarah hadn't been there for Michael in years, not really. Their relationship had become a series of missed calls and brief holiday greetings. And now he was asking for her. Take me to him, she said. They led her through more corridors, past rooms filled with sophisticated equipment. Finally, they reached a quarantine area. Through a glass window, Sarah could see 6 beds, each occupied by a soldier. Medical staff in hazmat suits moved between them. Which one is Michael? She asked, scanning the faces. Hayes pointed to the far corner. There. Sarah pressed her hand against the glass. Her brother lay still, eyes closed, an oxygen mask covering his face. Monitors beeped steadily beside him. He looked thinner than she remembered, his cheeks hollow. Can I go in? Not yet, Dr. Mercer said. We need to brief you on protocols, get you suited up. And we need that blood sample first. The next hours passed in a blur. Sarah's blood was drawn, she was briefed on the quarantine procedures, and finally helped into a hazmat suit. As she prepared to enter the isolation ward, Colonel Hayes stopped her. There's something else you should know, she said. Your brother's team was on a humanitarian mission. They were extracting medical workers from a conflict zone when they were exposed. They saved 12 lives before they got sick. Sarah nodded, a lump forming in her throat. That sounded like Michael, always the hero, always putting others first. When she entered the isolation ward, the air felt thick despite the ventilation in her suit. She moved carefully to Michael's bedside, her heart pounding. His eyes were open now, watching her approach. Sarah? His voice was weak, muffled by the oxygen mask. Hey, little brother. She tried to smile, though he couldn't see it behind her face shield. Quite the reunion you've arranged. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Always had a flair for the dramatic. Sarah checked his monitors, the nurse in her automatically assessing his condition. His vitals were stable but weak. The other soldiers looked worse, 2 were on ventilators. They told me why I'm here, she said, taking his hand through her gloved one. Something about our weird Collins genes finally being good for something. Michael squeezed her hand weakly. Dad always said we were special. Their father had died when Sarah was 12 and Michael was 10, a car accident that had shaped both their lives. He'd been a military man too, though neither of them knew much about his service. It had been classified, just like Michael's. The others, Michael whispered, they have families too. Sarah looked around at the other beds. I'll do whatever I can to help all of you. For the next 3 days, Sarah barely left the facility. She donated more blood, underwent tests, and spent hours by her brother's side. The medical team worked frantically to develop a treatment based on antibodies from her blood. When she wasn't with Michael, she helped care for the other soldiers, learning their names, their stories. Martinez, the soldier who'd brought her here, had a wife expecting their first child. Rodriguez had 3 kids and coached Little League. Wilson was engaged, the wedding just 2 months away. Each face, each story strengthened Sarah's resolve to help. On the 4th day, Michael's condition worsened. His fever spiked, and he began having seizures. Sarah stood helplessly as the medical team worked to stabilize him. We're running out of time, Dr. Mercer told her afterward. The treatment isn't ready yet. Then what else can we do? Sarah demanded. There is one option, he said hesitantly. A direct blood transfusion from you to your brother. It's risky, we don't fully understand how this pathogen works, but it might buy him time. Do it, Sarah said without hesitation. They set up the transfusion equipment beside Michael's bed. As her blood flowed into her brother's veins, Sarah held his hand and talked to him, reminiscing about their childhood, the camping trips their father had taken them on, the way their mother had sung them to sleep. Remember when Dad taught us to fish, she said. You were so determined to catch something bigger than mine. Michael's eyes fluttered open. And I fell in the lake trying. Sarah laughed softly. Dad jumped in after you, boots and all. He always had our backs, Michael murmured. Like you have for those medical workers you rescued, Sarah said. And like I have yours now. Hours passed. Sarah grew lightheaded from the blood loss, but refused to stop the transfusion until the doctors insisted. By morning, Michael's fever had broken. The treatment derived from Sarah's blood was finalized and administered to all 6 soldiers. 2 days later, all of them showed improvement. The quarantine remained in effect, but the immediate crisis had passed. Sarah, exhausted but relieved, sat beside her brother's bed as he ate his first solid meal in days. The colonel told me about your mission, she said. Those medical workers you saved, they made it out safely? Michael nodded. They're back with their families now. He set down his spoon. I'm sorry I never told you what I really do. I understand why you couldn't. No, not just the classified stuff. He looked at her directly. I never told you why I joined up, why I chose special ops. Sarah waited, sensing something important coming. It was because of Dad, Michael continued. Before he died, he told me something. He said his work had protected people who couldn't protect themselves. He said someday I might understand what that meant. Michael's voice grew stronger. When I was old enough, I found out he wasn't just regular army. He worked with humanitarian operations in conflict zones. The mission I was on, it was the kind of work he did. Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. He would be proud of you. He'd be proud of both of us, Michael replied. You save lives every day in that ER. A week later, the soldiers were declared free of the pathogen. The quarantine was lifted, though they would remain under observation. Sarah prepared to return to her normal life, though she knew nothing would ever feel quite the same. Colonel Hayes met her outside the facility as a car waited to take her home. Nurse Collins, she said formally, then softened. Sarah. What you did here was extraordinary. I just did what anyone would do for family, Sarah replied. No, you did more. You risked your own health for 6 strangers as well as your brother. Hayes handed her an envelope. The details of what happened here remain classified, but this letter acknowledges your service to your country. If you ever need anything at all, that number will reach me directly. Sarah took the envelope, oddly touched. Thank you. But what I really want is to be able to stay in contact with my brother. Real contact, not just holiday calls. Hayes smiled. I think that can be arranged. In fact, once he's fully recovered, Captain Collins has requested leave. I believe he mentioned something about wanting to see where his sister works. As the car drove Sarah back toward her ordinary life, she thought about how quickly everything had changed. One moment she had been leaving her shift, blood on her scrubs from a routine day in the ER, the next, she was being whisked away by helicopter to save her brother's life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael, "Thank you for having my back, sis. See you soon." Sarah smiled, watching the landscape pass by. Sometimes the most extraordinary moments came from simply being there when someone needed you. Sometimes being a hero meant nothing more than showing up. And sometimes, a helicopter landed and changed everything. If this story touched your heart, Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that remind us of the extraordinary moments hiding in ordinary lives. Your support helps us continue sharing these meaningful narratives with the world. Would you like me to explain or break down any aspects of this story?